Why is taking offs and landings are the most dangerous moments of every flight? So many people decide to close their eyes, sleep off, or just listen to music during these two portions of every flight. It's scary at times, but I hope you get information from this video that will help you in your next flight. Before we continue, hit the subscribe button and be up to date with our uploads. You are much more likely to die eating your favorite meal or doing your favorite sport activity than in a plane crash. That being said, accidents happen. History have recorded a lot of plane crashes. A rate of about 1 deadly plane crash for 2.5 million flights have been analyzed. You read that right. Yes, 1 plane crash in every 2.5 million flights. And half of these accidents occur during a very short journey. Do you want to know when you should stress the most on your next flight? Fasten your seatbelt and be prepared for turbulence. Taking offs and landings. Takeoffs and landings are widely considered the most dangerous moments in a flight, but this is only partly true. Let's look at this painting. Boeing keeps a record of fatal commercial flight crashes each year and ranks them by when they occurred and during what portion of the flight it occurred. Before we proceed, we have 3 portions of every flight, which are takeoff, en route or level flight, and lastly, we have the landing stage of the flight. Boeing breaks down the flight with an average duration of 1 hour 30 minutes in 8 phases, but we're only going to look at 5 phases. Starting at the beginning, the takeoff and initial mounting. This phase only accounts for 2% of the total flight duration, but it accounts for 14% of all fatal crashes, which may seem little until you compare it to the cruise phase. An aircraft spends more than half its 1 hour 30 minutes time on a cruise, but only 11% of fatal crashes occur during this phase. The final descent and landing phase. These phases take up about 4% of the average flight time and last twice as long as takeoff and initial mounting. But 49% of fatal crashes occur in this short window, making the final descent and landing the deadliest moments of a classic flight. So what's going on during this phase? Usually at takeoff and landing, the plane flies low and slow, and when problems arise, pilots have very little time to react and to get solutions for it. When the aircraft cruises at 38,000 feet, that is about 11,583 meters, the pilot has the luxury of having time and space to correct its trajectory and also time to check the minimum equipment list to get solutions for other issues. Even if both engines turn off, the plane will not fly from the sky with the pilot navigating it while looking for the nearest airport or suitable location to land the aircraft. This action is called gliding. On a cruise, a typical airline plane loses about 1 kilometer of altitude for every 10 meters covered, giving the pilot just over 8 minutes to find a place to land in case of an emergency. But if something goes wrong near the ground, this window shrinks considerably. For a classic airline plane, takeoff only takes 30 to 35 seconds. If an engine fails or the landing gear gets stuck, the pilot has almost no time to decide whether to get the plane off anyway or try to keep a 90-ton metal beast on the ground. Interrupted takeoffs are rare. Let's remember that when you're driving on a runway at over 270 miles per hour, things happen very fast. The decision to stop a takeoff or reject a takeoff is a very intense decision because it has to be done below a certain speed. Otherwise, due to physical laws, the aircraft will not be able to stop before the end of the runway, which will result to a plane crash. This is why even engine failure after V1, the pilots cannot abort takeoff because the aircraft will not be able to come to a complete stop before the end of the runway. If at some point the plane did not take off or stop, it will exit the runway and crash, which, according to the airport, could mean that the plane will end up in a field or literally fall off a cliff or in a city nearby or even in the sea. For dangerous runways like Telluride in Colorado, USA, with cliffs at the end of the runway, airports are installing an emergency arrest device known as the Engineered Materials Arrestor System (EMAS). An Engineered Materials Arrestor System is a stop bed located at the end of a runway, designed to collapse under the weight of an aircraft, ripping its tires and, ideally, stopping the aircraft in its race before it falls 300 meters. The device works the same way for a landing that went wrong. So what makes landing much more dangerous than takeoff? Simply put it, it's easier to fly a plane than to stop it. To make it simple, we slow down and bring the plane closer to the ground. And with the plane's speed already slowed down, Any wind gust or anything of that kind could have a more dramatic impact than at takeoff when the plane is at its full climb speed, which is why planes swing sideways during landing, especially when we have crosswinds, gust, or wind shear. During a normal landing, the pilot communicates with the control tower, aligns the plane on the appropriate runway with or without an instrument landing system, and keeps the crew informed of the progress of the landing. It's similar during takeoff, except you fly toward the ground instead of moving away from it. Sometimes landing is normal, everything goes well, and something happens at the last second that will lead to an accident or an incident. In other situations, there is already an emergency signal on board the aircraft that is an engine, hydraulic or electrical failure, etc., which already complicates the landing and greatly influences the deceleration distance once on the runway. The statistics may be scary, but the number still shows that airplane is the safest means of transport. And even if a crash happened on your next flight, God forbid, you would have a 98.7% chance of survival. To conclude, what make takeoffs and landing the most crucial and dangerous moments of every flight that recorded the highest amount of crashed is the reaction time that pilot have to make a decision. Do have a good flight, and don't not forget to hit the like and subscribe button to stay updated with our uploads.